Good evening, everyone. Welcome to your Tuesday night Dynasty Heat Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Frazier, and I'm joined by the always reliable Anthony Leone. Leone, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Just got back from the dentist, so this is a lot better than that. But it's good to see you, Bryce. Glad to be here, and I think we have, we got football back, so everything's got to be good. We got real games. I mean, yeah, they're preseason, but they're still real games. So, beats training camp and whatnot. So yeah, I'm in a great mood. Hopefully, everything's good with you as well.
Yeah, you don't really get to watch training camp a lot unless you're there live. So it's good to actually see players in the field and not just reading about this stuff. And before we get into it, I've gotten in the bad habit of always forgetting, but you can reach Anthony and I on Twitter at RotoHeatBryce, at RotoHeatAnthony. I'm not very active on Twitter, I'll be honest. I get on there.
I thought you forgot to give like a Deshaun Watson update.
No Deshaun Watson update today. But you can find, especially me, very active on the Roto Heat Dynasty Fantasy Football Facebook page and the Discord. You can always find the Discord in the on the Facebook page as well. That community is great. People ask questions all the time. They're giving their input. It's really widely used for a lot of times for polls for like trades or players you'd rather have in these certain draft positions and things like that. So if those are things you're struggling with and you'd like to get kind of a consensus between a lot of people that do this stuff way too much, like Anthony and myself, definitely join that page and check it out. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into it. So again, this is a recap of preseason week one. It was kind of different because a lot of teams, maybe played their starters for like one drive, or at least like some of the main starters for one drive, and then there's a lot of teams that didn't. So we don't really look. I'm not really too concerned about looking at a lot of these starters that we've seen, year in and year out, right? I'm looking at more of the guys that maybe are in their second year or they're rookies and things like that are going to get this opportunity. So what are they doing now compared to like what the news was happening in training camp? Laney, what are you looking for when you're watching these preseason games or watching the highlights or anything like that? Anything in particular?
Yeah, it's good to react to what you see, but not to overreact. I mean, there's really no reason to overreact to really anything. So understand what's going on, see what's going on, evaluate what's going on, react to what's going on, but you shouldn't be making any drastic decisions after one preseason game. And I think that's the most important thing. But I do think preseason is important. For example, we're not going to talk about Joe Mixon today, but Joe Mixon rested preseason game week one. He's the starter. You know who else rested? Samaje Perine. So it's like you already know, okay, he's going to be the backup to Mixon. Like there's no other reason why Samaje Perine wouldn't have played. So they didn't say he's the direct backup. I mean, maybe the depth chart says it is, but now for sure that he's the handcuff. And then you get to evaluate the guys who did play and see how they fit in. And so, yeah, a lot of it you kind of have to guess, but you do this long enough, you kind of start seeing trends and you kind of have a pretty good feeling on what to expect going forward. And so just try to take it all in, try to evaluate what's going on, but just don't overreact to everything because some of these guys we're talking about, they could be cut next week. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at a name right now on our list. He could be cut next week. So it's good to have a pulse on and keep an idea of what's going on, but just don't overreact to anything.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition into this first guy that we talked about. So the quarterbacks, there was a lot of quarterbacks that did well this weekend, and we're just going to talk about a few. So, if we miss some, it's just mostly because we only have an hour to talk about some of these guys. We want to hit the major positions. We really only talking about QB, running back, wide receiver. We didn't really see much from the tight end position, unfortunately. But I think the first guy, to me, it was probably one of the more impressive performances of the preseason. Now, again, I think this is a person that a lot of people are going to overreact on. Kenny Pickett was playing against the backups, right? But, I mean, his stat line was amazing. 13 for 15, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, along with 3 rushes and 16 yards. Pickett is a dual threat quarterback, so it was kind of nice to see him not really run the ball as much as maybe some of these other younger guys were. And even though he was playing against the backups, I did watch this game, and Kenny Pickett was very accurate. Like he looked really good in this game. I wasn't expecting him to look as good as he did, but Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph also didn't really look bad at all themselves. And Pickett was the 3rd quarterback to step foot on the field. There's rumors that Mason Rudolph could be traded or cut. Who knows? But right now, Kenny Pickett is the number 3 guy. But his performance was very promising for a rookie quarterback, especially the guy that was drafted first for quarterbacks in this most recent draft. So, what were your thoughts on Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, no, I thought he looked really good. I think all of them looked pretty good. I mean, I think they were all playing against backups. I don't know if Seattle really started any real starters, defensive line starters, especially when Pickett was in. I mean, like you said, he was going against, backups and backups and whatnot. But, all these guys in the league are really good. They're all talented, all these teams. I think they got to cut down to I think tomorrow they got to cut down to 85. So, but even still, all these guys on all these teams, they're all really talented. Whether they get cut or not, they're all extremely talented. So, yeah, I mean, Pickett played really well. So did Rudolph and Trubisky. So, I don't know. Who do you think is going to be the starter week 1? You think it's going to be Mason Rudolph, and then they're going to just wait for Pickett to come in? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think it's Mitch Trubisky. He started the game, preseason game. Yeah. And since Mason Rudolph didn't sit, I'm thinking that's the pecking order now. So it's Mitch Trubisky's job to lose at this point. I think the Steelers organization already have seen enough of Mason Rudolph to know what they're getting. So to me, it doesn't really make sense to put him in to be mediocre when I feel like the upside, especially with their dual threat ability of both Trubisky and Pickett, I would not be surprised to see Mason Rudolph as the number 3 when the season starts with Trubisky first in line, and then if he loses it, I could see them. I don't know. It depends how late in the season it is. If it was week 1 or 2, then I could see Mason Rudolph coming in, and then Pickett. But if it's 6 weeks, all right, Trubisky's not doing it. We're 2-4. Trubisky's not doing it, or later, I could see him all right, let's put Pickett in and see if momentum can shift. It changes the whole organization when a young guy gets in there and can start lighting it up. So we'll see.
I'm in a super flex with Sully, with from Sully's 2 cents, Rob Sullivan, and I picked up Mason Rudolph for free in the offseason. So I'm kind of hoping I get a couple starts out of him. We'll see.
I mean, it's possible. Even if you do have to start him, I wouldn't feel very comfortable.
No.
So next is your boy, Trey Lance. 4 for 5.
Yeah.
80 yards, a touchdown. 1 rush for 7 yards. Now we have to eat our own words a little bit, just a little bit, because it's preseason. I do. We both do. We had him. We said he was overvalued tremendously, right?
He is.
Is he?
Yeah, he still is. I watched.
Was he accurate? I didn't get to watch.
No. He was all right. Look, he had 4 completed passes. The one that was incomplete was he waited too long to throw it. Okay. So it was it was on him, for real on him. And then he had 2 other completions that were Dwight Clark, the catch, super high. Mm-hmm. So they were completions, but they weren't
good ones.
I mean, his stats are really inflated because of the touchdown pass to Danny Gray. So it's his start, it's kind of what's the best way to describe it? The stat, if you look at the stat sheet, it looks really good.
I gotcha. It's like a running back carrying the ball 19 times.
Yeah, and he has one long run.
198.
Yeah, that's really though. Honestly,
gotcha.
So most people who are talking about Trey Lance didn't really watch the game, or maybe they just saw some highlights. But I'm telling you, like, I watched the entire first half when he played, and if he didn't have that touchdown pass, this is a completely different conversation on all these forums.
We probably just don't mention it, really, right? I mean, like, we don't look in too much into it.
No, because people want to talk about the hype. People want to talk about the huge touchdown pass. People want to talk about his nice 7-yard run. People want to talk about how he looks better than last year.
We're not going to see him run much in preseason. I just don't see that happening, especially after what happened to Zach Wilson. I don't think we're going to see any of these quarterbacks.
No.
Except non-starters, right? Because like we'll see a guy we'll mention later, Malik Willis. We'll see him run a lot, right? Because that's his job at this point. So we'll get it. We'll get into that. Also, Cody, Jaws, good to see you guys in the chat. Jaws, I see your question there. We'll get to that when we talk about running backs here in a little bit. All right, so Trey Lance. Let's not.
I still think he's overvalued.
Okay,
but he still has a lot of upside and promise. So
okay,
it's not something where you need to be worried and you need to just get rid of him or anything like that. I think he's a good he's a good buy at the right price. He's a great hold and hope for the best. But this last week's showing was very, I'd say, overrated if you just look at the stat page.
Fair enough. Jalen Hurts. I mean, this guy's already kind of a top asset, especially if you're trying to win now and compete now or within the next couple of years. Jalen Hurts, 6 for 6, 80 yards and a touchdown. I'm starting to like. I was not really sold on Jalen Hurts, especially before last year. But as I watched him through the year, it's like, all right, he's really not that bad. And now he's got much better talent with A.J. Brown there, along with Devontae Smith. So I'm kind of like keeping my mind a little bit more open than I did last year with Jalen Hurts because I was like avoiding him like the plague. Because in Dynasty, I should say, I was avoiding him like the plague because I was like, the value's too high for a guy. I think I was talking about Jalen Hurts the same way we're talking about Trey Lance.
Yeah,
I would say is a good comparison. But Jalen Hurts just continues to do well. And this preseason, the first drive, he did well. Again, 6 for 6, 80 yards and a touchdown. So it's just worth noting that some of the starters that did play, they look like they're already in season form, ready to take the field week 1. So anything else to talk about on Jalen Hurts?
No, I mean if he can stay healthy, if he can continue to develop as a passer and be efficient on offense, then I think he's valued fairly. But as we've talked about before, and like we just talked about with Lance, there's a lot of risk because if it all doesn't come together, you're basically just sitting there with a lot of invested capital and nothing to show for it. So.
Right. I agree. Malik Willis. This one's a more fun one to talk about for me because pre-NFL draft, this guy was going in the first round of a lot of super flex rookie mocks.
Yeah, like
middle,
like where Pickett was going.
Yeah, I would say like from picks 4 to 8, you were seeing Malik Willis get drafted because of that amazing rushing upside. Then in the real draft, he falls 4 rounds. I think round 4.
He slipped down to round 3.
Which
I think
correlated to now fantasy owners. Okay, if NFL teams feel this way about him, maybe we shouldn't be so high up on him. I see him. I mean, I think it's pretty consistently that he was dropping to the second round of Superflex mocks. He might have snuck in the first round, in a couple here and there. But he played relatively well, and he used his feet. 6 for 11 for 107 yards, and then 5 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. So he's looking like a dual threat quarterback. I think the situation is great for him because I think it would be best for him to sit a year.
Yeah.
Learn from Ryan Tannehill, learn from Mike Vrabel, sit a year, come in, maybe next year, maybe the year after, we'll see. I think this is kind of a Ryan Tannehill last chance situation here because I think Derrick Henry's on his last really elite year. And I think Ryan Tannehill benefits so much from teams having to focus on Derrick Henry so much that Ryan Tannehill puts up better numbers than I think that he would be getting if he was in a situation where the run game wasn't nearly as relevant as it is. So if Derrick Henry starts to fall off, I think Ryan Tannehill starts to fall off, and I think the Titans start to rebuild around Malik Willis. in that quarterback position. So I was pretty impressed with his performances. He looked like he was making good decisions on when to throw it and when to run it. So just, again, worth noting, a guy that was going in the early second round of most Superflex mocks performed pretty well. I think owners are very happy with their investment, especially in a second round pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's been a good bargain, and he's a good buy. I think I had him ranked, top 15 in Superflex, and so yeah, a lot of people were passed up on him. He fell to a lot of second and third rounds, and even in Superflexes, which is just criminal. So yeah, I think if you can still get him for a good value, now's the time. He doesn't have quite a lot of buzz. I know we're talking about him now, but you're not really hearing him around the community as a lot of other guys. I see some names in the chat I've heard more of. So yeah, this is a good opportunity to buy him if you need a quarterback for the future. And I think it's more than likely Tannehill's not there next season. I could see Tannehill in Minnesota next year.
He becomes a journeyman.
Yeah.
At the end of his career, like
just
Matt
like
Ryan
Cousins.
is going to be,
and Cousins.
Carson Wentz, Cousins.
And all these teams, they always need bridge the gap type quarterbacks. We see it just like Garoppolo. Teams are always looking. Yeah, teams are always looking for their franchise quarterback, and they always want to mix and match guys, trying to find the secret sauce.
Yeah.
So if Tannehill will be fine if you have Tannehill. I wouldn't worry about that. He'll find a job. But if you need some upside quarterback for the future, I think Malik Willis is a pretty good bargain. I think you can get him pretty reasonably. Yeah,
I agree with that. Did you get a chance to watch the Falcons quarterbacks at all?
I watched the highlights. I watched my boy Mariota, and I like Mariota. He didn't play much, but he's accurate enough. He runs the ball well. I think he got a rushing touchdown, if I remember that correctly.
He did. So he went 2 for 2 for 36 yards, and then 3 for 23. Yeah, 3 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown.
Now,
drive.
And Ritter did well as well, and that was a name I think we talked about the other I think last week or the week before. Mm-hmm. I think we did. And yeah, both did well. I wouldn't be surprised if. What I think will happen is Mariota's going to get hurt, week 5 or 6, and then Ritter's going to start. That's what I think is going to happen. But even if Mariota doesn't get hurt, I think Ritter will probably start by year end. I don't, unless you're more of a believer in Mariota. I think when he's on the field, he's productive. He'll get you fantasy points. He'll even throw a touchdown pass to himself. But is he really going to be a starter for this whole season? I doubt it. Whether it's injury or he gets replaced by the organization wanting to see what they have in Ritter, I think it's going to happen because I don't see this team winning a lot of games. Bryce?
I'm going to make the bold prediction that Desmond Ritter starts week 1. Desmond Ritter went 10 for his completion percentage wasn't great. 10 for 22, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. He carried the ball 6 times for 59 yards. I just see I thought the same thing about Cam Newton and Mac Jones last year, where I was like, there's no way Mac's starting week 1. It's going to be Cam. 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 But Desmond Ritter has all these great raves about his training camp. He looked really good in this preseason game. I think that I was saying, I wasn't really big on any of these quarterbacks, but I do remember I mentioned several times, whether it was in chats or maybe even on the stream, that I think Desmond Ritter is the most NFL ready quarterback out of all the people that were drafted. Just the way that they ran the system in Cincinnati, the way he was poised in the pocket, he was accurate. I think that he has all the tools to be a successful NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a star, like an elite guy, but I think he could be a middle of the pack guy and have decent rushing upside.
He did find this game, but he did have a lot of accuracy issues. He only completed 10 passes of 22. So
yeah, but he also had the backup squad. He was throwing to the backups. They really
but their starting roster is backups.
They'll be fine once Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to be good enough. Are going to be good enough targets to where I think the Falcons will do better than most people think this year. I think.
Yeah, and it's too bad London is hurt.
I think they're going to start their rebuild right now. I don't see the point in, and I don't really know how much that Mariota is going to teach Desmond Ritter. I think that Desmond Ritter is going to get way more valuable experience by getting on the field, building that rapport with Drake London early, building that rapport with Kyle Pitts early. Tyler Algier is going to be the starting running back is what I predict, and Cordarrelle Patterson is just going to be that veteran presence. It makes sense to me for them to start their rebuild immediately.
There's a lot. I agree with you, except I don't think all this is going to happen week 1.
We'll see. It was bold. It was a bold prediction.
It's a little.
It's a little. Is it that bold?
It's a little too bold.
I don't.
I think your Coca-Cola might have some real Coke in it or something.
This is a Sprite Zero. I don't drink those Coca-Colas.
Okay.
All right. Oh, look at this. I'm not the only one.
No, but I really don't think week 1. I mean that. I don't want you to lose another bet, but I'm just saying.
Not betting. This is bold.
I understand.
I think the chances of this are less than 50. I do.
Yeah, it's way less.
It won't surprise. It ain't way. I don't think.
I'll give you odds. We'll talk about this later.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. All right, let's move into running backs. And with that being said, let's get into Jaz's question. Thanks for getting in the chat, Jaz. Believe the hype on Isaiah. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Pacheco.
Pacheco. Okay.
It's got to be Pacheco. There's a town nearby where I live called Pacheco, so I think it's Pacheco. I'm pretty confident with that.
Did you get a chance to look at him? Now, this is a guy that I actually ended up picking up in some leagues, and I didn't really even think about him. The running back for the Chiefs, and apparently he's been looking really good in practice, and I believe that he didn't do too bad himself in the preseason game. Let me pull up the stat line here.
Yeah, he has a lot of hype right now, and you have to be careful with these guys that get too much hype because it's like an avalanche. It just gets way out of control.
Oh, he only touched the ball 3 times.
So this is one of those things where it's like, look, he's in a good spot. He doesn't have a lot of competition. But let's not put, too much faith in a guy that a lot of people wrote off 2 weeks ago. So it's okay to be optimistic, but I don't want to see people trading, first-round picks for this guy. If you have him, cool.
Oh, no, that's not happening. First rounders,
dude. The people are all. Have you not seen the hype on Twitter for this guy?
No, that's insane. If it is,
people are.
There is good. People are nuts if they're.
Some people think Pacheco's going to start week 1.
Okay, we'll see. I think Desmond Ritter has a much better chance of starting week 1 than Isaiah Pacheco. What do you think? Pacheco. Sorry.
There you go. Yeah, because Mariota will probably get hurt by then.
Okay. I think just by skill alone. That's I'm not buying too much into it. I know he's been looking good at practice, and that is important. Like training camp is important. Like the reports on those are important. But he only touched the ball 3 times.
Okay, so look.
But they're all the running backs touched the ball less than 5 times. So there's not much to go off of there.
All right, so look at that comment.
Yeah.
Pacheco's
162 on
62.
And climbing.
I'm telling you, I know. And climbing. That's the important part.
So there is our overreaction then.
Okay. I mean, I wish I had those rankings but I mean 162 overall, like that's high. It's really high. It doesn't sound that high when it's like 163 guys ahead of him, but when you talk about all the quarterbacks and the other running backs and the wide receivers, I mean there's like 60. I mean half that list is just wide receivers off the top. So if you take all the wide receivers out, now he's like the top 60th player, not counting wide receivers. Like it's insane.
He's probably
what I mean?
Number 3.
Yeah, so my math is bad on that.
But. I'm just holding on to the few investments I have on him in leagues I draft.
Yeah, he's a solid hold. I think you could trade him if one of your league mates is real high on him. You could get a 23-second for him. I think you could easily do that right now, easy. And it's up to you if you want to take that risk or not, or just hold and see what you can get. But I mean, if you can turn a 4th-round draft pick a couple months ago into a 23 second. I mean, I think I would do it.
Right.
I would do
of
it.
course. All right. I think the most impressive running back of the entire weekend is the next guy, Damien Pierce, 5 for 49. It didn't have any PPR points. He did have 1 target towards him. As a person who's been kind of investing in Marlon Mack a lot this offseason, it sucks, right? To see him be so successful in the first preseason game. But it's, again, this is week 1 of the preseason. But the Texans are also in like that situation where it's like, let's just get these young guys in now and start the rebuild, right? Like they want to give Davis Mills a chance. So sure, it makes sense to put in Damian Pierce. I would be more interested to see how well his blocking is, because that's important especially when you're working with a young quarterback on staying on the field. If you can block as a running back, you're just out there on the field, which increases obviously your odds to get touches. So Damian Pierce, with only that 5 for 49, that was pretty much the best rushing performance of anybody this preseason. So are you reading into this Damian Pierce hype? He was going mid-second in most rookie drafts.
Yeah. I mean, I just think the opportunity's there. He looks really good. He's getting targeted. He can play. I mean, he can be on the field the whole. I mean, who are you worried about there? I mean, who's going to take the touches from him? You think Marlon Mack?
I'm actually curious to see what the depth chart looks like.
I mean, and it may not be week 1.
I think Marlon Mack is extremely underrated.
It may not be week 1, but this is like Pierce has that feel. Pierce has that feel of being that guy that comes out like week 7, week 8, and just takes over. Now, obviously, it may not be as dominant as someone like Jonathan Taylor or something like that, but I really do think that he is going to own this backfield sooner rather than later. I don't know when their bye week is. That's always a good tell.
Their depth chart on ESPN, I couldn't find their website, but it has Marlon Mack as the number 1 still. I think it's Marlon Mack. Honestly, I think
week 6. So like week 7, I could totally see Pierce coming in now, getting way more of a workload. So I think, I mean, in redraft, people, yeah, exactly. I know, week 6. In redraft, people are going to overdraft him. In Dynasty, he's pretty much untouchable right now. If you have him, you're not trading him. If you try to acquire him, you're going to have to pay through the nose. Like, it's just not worth it.
You probably have to pay it first, I would bet. I would say.
Yeah. And maybe more. I mean, maybe more, depending on where your pick was at.
This next draft class has a lot of hype. I mean, their picks are more valuable than I've seen them in a while.
Yeah. But, so it's just one of those things where if you have them, I think you're going to probably hold unless you get a crazy offer, which you probably won't get. And I mean, I think it's a great spot if you're able to get them in the second round of these rookie drafts. I think now in 1 QB, he would have to move above Christian Watson. I mean, he would be like a mid to late first right now. I don't see how Pickens would move up a little bit. Watson would fall. I think he'd be right there with like Dotson. He'd be right there with like Jahan Dotson.
Why is Watson falling?
Just because he hasn't played.
He's practicing now.
I know, but I mean, you wouldn't draft Pierce ahead of him?
No way.
No
way. I draft talent. Especially when it comes to wide receiver. I mean, Christian Watson's 6'5", ran a 4.3. He has good routes. The only issue that he's getting talked about is his hands, but Devontae Adams that was an issue for Devontae Adams. That was an issue for Jamar Chase. I think that gets over. I think there's an adjustment for sure, especially when you have a different quarterback and things like that. But the situation for Christian Watson is, I mean.
All right, so I'm interested. Let's do. later, let's do like a poll on Roto Heat. Let's just say, hey, Christian Watson or Damian Pierce. Do you think Christian Watson would win that?
I do. I think.
Okay, let's do that because I think Pierce would win. That'd be fun. We'll see what happens. I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll post that right when the stream's done.
Yeah,
and I'll put my vote in immediately. And to be honest, I'm a little biased because I did invest the 109 in my biggest league on Christian Watson and the 110 on George Pickens. So, yeah, I mean, you could also say like, I don't know about that. I mean, Zeke was drafted 4th overall. Like, I feel like you'd have to like compare Pierce to somebody also drafted late that ended like that is really relevant. You know what I mean? Like, we all knew Zeke was going to come in and be sweet. Like, nobody really knows if Pierce is going to be. And
Michael
Zeke
Carter. I think Michael Carter would be a fair comp.
He's not the same kind of player as Michael Carter. This guy's a bruiser. This is like a Maurice Jones-Drew size running back.
Oh, Maurice Jones-Drew.
There's one, I guess.
Did you know Maurice Jones-Drew played here where I live in Concord at De La Salle High School?
I did not know. How would I know where they played in high school?
Well, you're always on me for not knowing where they play in college.
Okay,
now I'm going to get on you for not knowing where they play in high school.
College is on TV.
Hey,
high school football is like rarely on TV.
I know where they play in high school then. You can know where they play in college.
Yeah, you could say.
I don't know where Maurice Jones-Drew played in college.
But we could say like.
I know where he played in high school.
Well, yeah, but Watson could also be like, Julio Jones. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, you could just sit there and say all these guys that are 6'5" and run a 4.3. Like, yeah, MVS, I guess, is a good comparison to the size and speed, but I think that MVS didn't walk in there with like Devontae Adams is already there. Like, there's nobody there in front of Christian Watson. Like, the path to him being the number one is just so easy compared to any other rookie wide receiver that is not named Drake London.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no other wide receiver that has a better opportunity to go, especially when it was drafted in the 2nd round. So, we'll see. Who's next? Oh my gosh. Go ahead and talk about him. This is ridiculous.
Who do I got? Oh, okay. So listen, Nahim Heinz. Okay, listen. Now look, Jonathan Taylor is the man. Okay. Nahim Heinz is not going to tread much on his territory.
You're not treading on anything.
And Jonathan Taylor didn't play in week 1, so I can't even talk about him. But for what it's worth,
play any preseason.
For what it's worth, Nahim Heinz looked pretty good. He ran the ball well. He had a couple catches, and I just think it's very noteworthy. And I think if you have him, I think you could flex him. I think they're going to get him involved. I've been saying this for a while now. Look, he's not going to be an RB1. He's not going to be a consistent RB2. But I do think he's flex worthy. I do think he has sneaky PPR upside where if you don't have a really good running back 2 or you want some running back depth, Nahim Heinz is the perfect type of guy in a PPR league because I think he's going to be more involved than last season. The coaching staff have already said they want to try to get him more involved. He looked good this last preseason game in JT's absence. Now, I don't think his role would change very much either if Jonathan Taylor got hurt. I think it'd be still a committee approach, and Nahim Heinz will still maybe he'll get a couple more carries a game, maybe 3 or 4. But I mean, he's really going to have a lot of value in the passing game, and I really do think that. Oh, look at that, Maurice Jones-Drew, UCLA. Now I know. I do think that Nahim Heinz is going to have a very fantasy-friendly flex role on fantasy teams, and I think of all these guys we're talking about, he's of probably the cheapest you can get for most of these guys we're talking about. So yeah, I think Nahim Heinz had a good game, and I think he's going to have a pretty good year. So I'd like to hear what you think about Nahim Heinz.
He is not gonna be a guy. If you are in any situation where Nahim Heinz is your number 2 running back because you don't have depth, rebuild. There's no point.
No. I disagree.
If you're plugging in Nahim Heinz as your running back too, you're in big trouble. Big.
Not if you're set at other positions. No way. A lot of teams
have to be
running back
extremely stacked everywhere else.
A lot of teams have running back.
Nahim Heinz will put up more weeks less than 10 points than he will above it. 100%. He'll put up more sub 10-point weeks than he does more. So he'll have, there's 17 weeks. They play 16 games. He'll have 8 games. I bet he'll have around 10 to 12 games of less than 10 points. Actually, 12 to 14 games of less than 10 points. 12 to 14. No,
I disagree with you.
That's okay. You can disagree. No. Paris Campbell. This is Nahim Heinz slot receiver.
I love how mad you get. I love this.
Paris Campbell is going to be the slot receiver. He's finally healthy. He's going to be the best slot receiver on the team. Alec Pierce is going to find his way on the field as the number 2 wide receiver, and it's going to be Michael Pittman Jr. And Alec Pierce is going to surprise a lot of people this year. A guy I wanted to talk about, but his stat line wasn't great, but he got open a lot. No, Nahim Heinz is not a guy I feel comfortable putting in my lineup unless Jonathan Taylor was hurt. There's no flipping way. Nope. He's going to disappoint you more than he. 12. If James White didn't retire, James White would have done better than Nahim Heinz.
Now I think I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not gonna throw shade. I think you said you would prefer James White this year over Nahim Heinz on an earlier episode.
I did, but now James White's so I don't now, obviously.
All right.
But you know what? James White will not disappoint me now. Can't happen. He won't disappoint. He will do the same every week, which is
all right. Well, now I know. I didn't realize you had this much hate for Nahim Heinz. So
I don't hate him, but I just don't think like he'll.
I'm going to try to find a way to work in Nahim Heinz on every episode now.
Okay,
that's my goal.
Rick will talk about Ramondre Stevens every episode, being better than Damian Harris. It's just
but you guys have real money on the line. This is just for fun.
I wish I could find a player I'd like to compare to Nahim Heinz that we could bet on. That you're not higher on. I can't think of one right now, but we'll figure one out. All right, Brian Robinson Jr. 6 for 26, 1 touchdown, 2 catches for 15 yards. Pretty good stat line for a rookie running back. He plays for the NFC East. Who is it again?
The Commanders.
The Commanders, yes. I almost said Philly. I knew it was an NFC East team. The Commanders now. I almost said Redskins already. I think the path for him to get on the field is going to be difficult because I really do think that it's Antonio Gibson's job. I think that dude is extremely talented. I don't think they utilize him quite the way I think he should be. I think he should be on the field a lot more than he is. But they just seem so persistent on getting J.D. McKissick on the field and whatnot. And then Jarrett Patterson is a guy I feel like people are forgetting about. But when he got his limited opportunities last year, he was also very efficient. So Brian Robinson Jr. is a guy that I'm like, all right, I drafted this dude in like the 4th or 5th round in my rookie draft. He's sitting on my taxi squad. This is a pretty promising first preseason game. Maybe this guy finds a way to become a starter here in a year or two. So, I'm not getting my hopes up because, like I said, I think the path is difficult. But, for a guy drafted that late, pretty good stat line. What are your thoughts?
All right, Bryce. Now, I know you work like 7 jobs. Just 3-ish. Antonio Gibson today, have you ever seen like that? Have you seen that face melt emoji? Have you seen that face with the face? Like if you own Antonio Gibson right now, that's how you felt today. You're just like, oh my God, what is happening to my running back?
Yeah, I see a player, this guy.
He fumbled in the preseason game and basically got benched. And then Brian Robinson comes in and shows him up. And then today it's reported, I don't know for sure, but it's reported that Gibson was working on special teams.
And the third stringers.
Now, could we see a scenario where Jarrett Patterson and maybe Robinson ends up being the lead back early in the season and Gibson is basically just used as like a switchblade knife here and there, like kind of gimmicky plays and on special teams to try to get a spark on the. I think it's very possible. I mean, and this is coming. I own Antonio Gibson in that same league I mentioned with Sullivan, with Sully. I own Antonio Gibson in a number of other dynasty leagues too, and I'm just like, man, this kind of sucks. Like, I'm not really feeling this. Like, there's so many red flags right now, given that Gibson has never really been a full-time running back other than his short stint here in Washington. So I think if you own him, you just have to hope and pray that he turns it around, because this could get worse than it is now, and it's already not looking good. So not to take away from Robinson here, who we're supposed to be talking about, but
so you're worried.
Robinson did well, and yeah, I am a Gibson owner, and I am legitimately worried. I think you can't trade him right now. Like, you cannot trade him right now.
Yeah, you're trading him low.
You just hope he gets out of this little funk and everything goes back to normal. But it is not good in my opinion, and you may disagree, right? Because like I preface this whole show with, it's okay to react, just don't overreact. I don't think I'm overreacting on this one for Gibson. I think this is bad. I really do. I really think this is bad.
Yeah, getting benched is one thing. Like, I wouldn't overreact there. But now that he got to practice with the third stringers and the punt team, that's a little
after
concerning.
Fumbling in week 1. Like, when you look at everything as a whole and you kind of put everything together, it's like, and then Robinson does really well. Like, he looks good. He catches the ball. He plays really well. It's kind of like, this isn't good. Like, everything's like building up against him. And it's like, man, this is bad. So it reminds me of like, Miles Sanders, like, just out of favor, like, just didn't come together. It happens a lot with a lot of these guys, and it just doesn't all come together. They have a pretty good season, maybe a second good okay season, but it just doesn't come together, and now they're outside looking in. And so, yeah, I am legitimately worried about Gibson.
Yeah, and he was pretty good last year. He had 1,000. He had over 1,300 yards all purpose and 10 touchdowns. I mean, last year was a good season, so it'd be kind of crazy to see him just kind of fall off the fantasy face of the earth. It'd be like something New England would do with a running back.
I mean, maybe they'll have a committee, but as you know, committee, it'd be just like Philadelphia last year. In Philadelphia last year, you couldn't start any of them. You couldn't start Boston Scott. You couldn't start Miles Sanders. You couldn't start Gainwell. I mean, you couldn't start any of them because they mixed them in so infrequently and frequently, I guess. And I see the same thing shaping up here in Washington. I just, if you're depending on Gibson to be your running back 1 or 2, say some extra prayers tonight before you go to bed. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Seems a bit dramatic, but all right, we'll carry it into the rest of the week. We'll have to monitor the practice situation. But Gibson owner Anthony Leone is.
I'm going to be on my knees praying tonight to the fantasy gods every night until this gets resolved.
Wow!
I promise you that.
All right, I believe you. All right, and the last running back I wanted to really mention was Rashad White. Rashid? Well, it's 2 A's. I don't know. R. White for Tampa Bay, 7 for 32. A guy a lot of people are investing a second-round pick in, being the Buccaneers. He's obviously coming in as the Buccaneers' number 2 running back. Leonard Fernette's there, and it's his job to lose. But Leonard Fernett has a lot of miles on him. Like, he has carried a lot of volume in his career. So it wouldn't be crazy to think those wheels fall off and White sees the opportunity to get on the field. It's him and Keyshawn Vaughn. And I know we spoke about Keyshawn Vaughn last week of guys that were some deep stashes because he's listed so low. But I think White just has the frame and build to be. Okay, so it is Rashad. Rashad White. Yeah, Rashad White.
No. Look how he wrote it. He wrote
Rashad. Okay.
Boom.
Rashad White could be a guy that again sits on.
That's
your
like what you said, huh? Isn't that exactly what you said? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you just have to correct the correct pronunciation. Could be a guy that sits on your taxi squad, and if the right situation comes up and you're hurting a running back, he get called up in the middle of this year. If not, you feel completely fine leaving him on your taxi squad. I think that the chances of Leonard Fernett being back next year are very low. And I also think the chances of Tom Brady coming back next year are also kind of low. So they could be complete rebuild mode, and they might do it around this young running back. So it's good to see him get on the field and get some touches and be relatively productive with the few that he had. Anything else to note on him?
No, I mean, I would, as we said last week, I would prefer him over Keyshawn Vaughn, even though Keyshawn Vaughn is listed ahead of him on the depth chart. I think, Rashad White is likely going to get into a larger role. Showed well so far in the preseason and training camp. I expect that to continue going forward. Mm-hmm. But as we said last week, don't lose, get as many shares as you can as Keyshawn Vaughn, because his ADP is just criminally low. It's like off the chart so low, like on the bottom, like so low.
Off the chart in a bad way.
Yeah, like bad low. Like, where's my list where I had you had to write him on? Like, he's not even on the list. You just have to write his name on the list. But he is second on the depth chart right now, and you never know what can happen. So I still think Keyshawn Vaughn is a good stash. But yeah, Rashad White, I think ultimately that if I had to place some money on what I think would happen, I think that would be the right place to put your money. Right.
All right, Leonard, jump into the wide receivers. This is the fun part for me, at least.
Yeah, and we get to start off with I think this might be the biggest hype name, maybe Damian Pierce and George Pickens. I'm not sure which one, but George Pickens had a very nice game. What's that?
Or Isaiah.
Oh, yeah, Pacheco, yeah. And then I guess we can get. There was a comment about another Isaiah. Likely, we can likely.
Oh yeah, we can talk about him. Yeah.
We'll likely talk about him later. So George Pickens, man, what a nice touchdown grab. I'm sure you've seen that. My favorite part was his dance afterwards. Did you see his touchdown dance?
Yeah, it's like
he did the. It's the A. Have you seen AB do that? That's the AB dance. Have you seen that?
I know it was AB's dance, but I didn't know if AB had a consistent.
Oh no, recently,
AB
recently,
used to also do the salsa too.
Yeah, so recently AB has been rapping, and he's been doing this little dance. So it was a nice little tip of the cap to AB when he had that nice touchdown grab with the toe tap and all that. That was very cool. And yeah, man, Pickens, you and I were both very high on him in the preseason. So hats off to us. We called that one right. And he's doing well. Again, this is one where I think people are going to overreact, especially in redraft. I know we're a dynasty show, but an underdog, ADP, I bet his ADP is just going to skyrocket right now. But how is this guy going to get production on a weekly basis this year? I mean, if you acquire him, do not think that you're going to be able to start him this year. You have Deontay Johnson ahead of him on the depth chart. And yeah, maybe he and Chase Claypool will share some reps together. But with the quarterback play being as inconsistent as it's going to be, I mean, they're not going to be playing against second and third stringers like they did in this preseason game where all these quarterbacks are going to go off. It's not going to be a very productive season for Claypool or for Pickens. So it's just this season, it's just too risky. I just don't have a really good feeling about it. I think Deontay is going to have a suppressed year himself, and really not anything against him. It's just, I just don't have much faith in the quarterback position for the Steelers this season. So, look, I think if you drafted Pickens, good on you. I think we both had him ranked maybe even a little too low. We were both high on him, maybe a little bit too low. But he's done really well so far in this preseason, week 1, training camp. And I think we're going to continue to see him do well and grow as long as he can stay healthy. Bryce?
If there is anybody to overreact on in the preseason, it's George Pickens. We did have him ranked.
Nahim Heinz. You weren't going to say Nahim Heinz.
We had him ranked way too low. George Pickens, arguably, if he didn't have the character issues and the injury issues, he may have been a top 3 pick in wide receiver for this previous draft. He had the character issues because he was punching some dude like he got in a fist fight with the dude on the field, and he's been like mouthy. And he has a mouth on him, but I think that's like part of his game too. You see it a lot with cornerbacks, like Jalen Ramsey's got a mouth on him too. But I think a lot of times it's to get in the head of your opponent. But sometimes it gets too far and gets you in fights. George Pickens is a freak talent. I now have him as wide receiver 2 in Superflex drafts. So he's jumped way up for me. I had him at 6 anyway. The only reason I technically drafted Christian Watson before him in my 1 draft is because I had just back-to-back picks, and Christian Watson's name was above George Pickens, so I just went boom, 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 boom. But George Pickens, I mean, this guy is nuts. You're right. I'm probably not gonna avoid the hype and redraft. Luckily, I only do 1 redraft league, but in Dynasty, I'm at this point willing to try and maybe overpay a little bit. Or to me, I think it'd be an early underpay, I guess, because I think his value is just gonna keep going up. I think he beats out Chase Claypool. I've been reading a lot of the Steelers training camp, and he has become Mitch Trubisky's favorite target. Deontay Johnson hasn't been practicing with a hip issue. And if Trubisky, what?
Who cares if he's Mitch Trubisky's favorite target?
I think Mitch Trubisky's the starter.
Yeah, but for how long? Who cares?
I think for half the season. Even then, I think once he's on the field and he is the starter, which I think will be happening the first several weeks, he's gonna show why he's gonna deserves to be on the field, and he's not gonna come off of it.
Okay,
I think Chase Claypool potentially gets weeded out, which is sad to say because I think he's extremely talented too.
He'll get converted to tight end.
I think the Steelers are just very talented.
We're gonna go full circle with Claypool.
Yeah, and as a guy who invested in a lot of Claypool in Dynasty. Yeah, it hurts to say, but Pickens is the real deal.
Freiermuth. I even forgot to mention Pat Freiermuth. Like, there's just not enough targets to go around in this offense. Najee Harris. I
think Najee gets a significant amount less targets this year.
Yeah, but in this offense, I'm just saying, I would not expect a huge season. I think
Pickens could be offensive.
If you can get, this is my advice. This is no way.
Who's getting it?
There's no chance he gets Rookie of the Year. There's no chance, zero chance.
Who gets Rookie of the Year? What player is in a better position to get it? Christian Watson. That's it.
Pierce comes to mind.
No.
Breece Hall comes to mind.
Breece Hall's a
Pickett has a much better chance than Pickens. I'm telling you,
Pickett. I think Ritter. I think Ritter has probably the best chance.
Right. There is no chance Pickens gets Rookie of the Year. I would bet anything.
Okay. We'll see.
There's no chance because there's not enough targets to go around. He's not gonna. There's no way he breaks 1,000 yards receiving. There's no way. It's not gonna happen.
Listen, Big Ben was terrible his last 2 years. Terrible. Chase Claypool almost got, I think, he didn't even have that great of a rookie season, and he got enough volume to get close. I think that you're underestimating. I think Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett right now are better than what Big Ben was these last 2 years.
No, I don't agree with that. But let me say this.
That's fine.
My advice for Pickens, if you want Pickens, everyone wants Pickens. If you can get him for a fair price right now, I'm all for it. If you think you have a late 23 first, I'm cool with it. I'm good with it. Maybe even a mid 23 first, I'm good with it. But I do believe his value will be less 2 months from now than it is right now. Maybe not a lot. I don't see him having a really good freshman season. But if you agree with Bryce, then I'll be wrong. And he may be on his way to Rookie of the Year, and you'll have to pay 2 firsts, 3 firsts for him. I don't see that happening, in my own opinion.
You'll see. Claypool had 800 yards and like 8 touchdowns his first year, and Big Ben was awful. Big Ben was terrible.
I have more.
I'm just saying, volume is more important than talent when it comes to quarterback. Volume is more important than talent. Like, obviously the touchdown upside goes down, but if you're just getting fed, like, I think there's gonna be enough targets to go around. I think whoever's playing quarterback at Pittsburgh has to throw the ball 35 times a game, and you can't throw the ball to Deontay Johnson 20 times. I could see Pickens getting 8 to 12 targets.
Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris.
Freiermuth's not Travis Kelce. Freiermuth's a good guy that gets like Hunter Henry numbers, but he's not getting volume. He's not getting Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller. He's not those guys. He's just not. No, probably not. But like, to put that in perspective, let's see what Deontay Johnson got last year when it comes to targets. Because Chase Claypool last year got 105 targets. Chase Claypool did last year. I think George Pickens takes Chase Claypool's spot, and I think he could see a little bit more targets. I don't think I think the opportunity for volume is there. So, I'm trying to look at his stats here. It doesn't tell me targets.
You think Chase Claypool just disappears?
I don't think he disappears, but I think he becomes the number 3. 160 plus? No, he's not going to get that many. I think he's going to see 110-ish targets. That's what I think happens. I think he beats Chase Claypool out. Chase Claypool last year was already getting benched for James Washington and whoever else was there at the end of the year. He underperformed on plenty enough opportunity. He wasn't good at Chase Claypool was the guy that was supposed to go up and get it, and George Pickens is better at that than him. So we'll see.
T. Higgins.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Last year.
Johnson had 160 plus. Yeah, I don't think Pickens gets that. I think Pickens gets 110-ish.
T. Higgins had 110 last year with Burrow.
Higgins didn't play every week. Just saying.
There's no way. I just don't see it happening.
T. Higgins averaged over double-digit targets, I believe. I think, like, with the games he played, I think he averaged double-digit targets. T. Higgins had more targets than Jamar Chase, by the way, just so you know. T. Higgins was targeted more than Jamar Chase.
I know, and you're
just let it.
I know, and you're.
That's just a fact. That's just a fact.
I know, but you're saying he's going to be up there with these guys. I just don't see it. I really don't.
I think he has the talent. I think George Pickens is elite talent. I think so. Listen, the last time I talked about a guy like I'm talking about George Pickens was Jalen Waddle. Just saying, just throwing it out there. I was right on the money with him. Alec Pierce or Pickens? Pickens, but Alec Pierce is sneaky. I like him too a lot. I would like to have mentioned him on this list. It's just he didn't really.
You can. Well. We don't have to.
This dude's tall. He's a big bodied guy. He played with Desmond Ritter at Cincinnati. So if you don't know who he is, Alec Pierce. So I think that Pierce has a great opportunity to be the number 2 receiver on the team, just like Pickens does. I just think that Matt Ryan is good enough to spread the ball past the first 2 reads, where all these Bears quarterbacks, I think, look at the first or second read and start to scramble. where Matt Ryan's going to go boom, first receiver, second receiver, third receiver, tight end, or whatever order this certain play calls for. Matt Ryan is just able to spread the ball more, to where I think that whoever the quarterback is for the Steelers is going to be a guy that two dudes are going to carry a bulk of the volume of targets, and I think Pickens and Deontay will be one of them. We'll see, Leone. I will look back on this and just be like, admit it, and I'm gonna make you admit it several times throughout the.
I will. If he gets over 110 targets, or
I think around there. I think around there is reasonable.
No way. It's
okay.
Not gonna happen.
We'll see.
Well, we're running out of time. I think we need to skip down to the guy Zay Jones. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my god. All right. Let's talk about these three. Let's talk about these last four together, okay? Because they're all guys I feel like went around the well.
Let me talk about the first two, and then you can talk about the second two.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, because they're both my two guys played in the same game. So Romeo Doubs, he had a great game, even though Jordan Love didn't do well. He had 7 targets, 3 catches, 45 yards, nice long touchdown catch, and just the emergence of this guy out of nowhere, with Christian Watson hurt, is, I think, great. I mean, I think if you were able to get Doubs in the 4th round in your rookie drafts, maybe even a little bit later in some drafts, I think it's incredible value. I think he's a solid hold. I don't think you can really trade for him with a reasonable price. I mean, I guess if you can get him for a 23 third, I'd be good with that. But I don't think you're going to be able to get him for that. So I think if you drafted him and you got him, you're golden. I have him on a number of teams. I'm very happy with that. So we'll see how that goes. So that was a great showing from Doubs in Green Bay. And then Danny Gray, Niners, baby. He had that huge touchdown pass from Trey Lance that we already talked about. Very sneaky player. The coaching staff really likes what he brings to the table. Very dynamic type player. I think they brought him in not knowing exactly if Debo was going to be there. Debo is still there. Obviously, he just signed. But still, this team doesn't have great wide receiver depth. After Debo Samuel and Ayuk, it's really a wasteland. So I think Danny Gray has a chance here to start and 3 wide receiver sets. He's a deep threat as we just saw in week 1 with his huge touchdown grab, and I think he's a great sneaky buy for the right price. I would probably wouldn't want to do like a pick for him. I would probably want to do like a player for player type guy for him. Someone like on your bench that you're not too high on that you have. It's like, or when you do like a trade and you want to like get a guy thrown in, he's the perfect throw-in guy, Danny Gray. So I just think that Danny Gray and Romeo Doubs both. What a great game this was! The first half of the Green Bay Niner game. They both showed out. So I was very, very happy to see that, considering I have a number of shares of each of them. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on those two, Bryce, before you get into your guys.
Yeah, I think the path to both of them getting on the field is very it's ideal, especially where you drafted them in your rookie draft. So I agree. I've got a couple of Romeo Doubs on my taxi squads, and you know what? I'm perfectly happy with him sitting in there. And if he turns out to be a guy that I can start, then he'll get called up. I like it.
Yeah.
So the guys I got here, the last two we're going to talk about, Khalil Shakir, 5 catches for 92 yards. His path isn't so easy to see the field. He is with the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, they've got Gabe Davis, and a lot of people, he is a breakout candidate. Like there's no debating it. Like he's entering his 3rd year. He ended last year with a lot of momentum in the playoffs, amazing performances. If he can keep that rolling into this next season, he's got the physical attributes. You just got to put it all together. He could be a great number 2 for Josh Allen. And obviously Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs. But if Gabe Davis doesn't pan out, Khalil Shakir could be the guy, right? If the Jamison Crowder isn't doing well as the number 3 wide receiver on the field, put in the young, talented receiver. High-powered offense, guy you didn't invest a lot of draft capital in, so you're happy with this performance. And then I had to pick a homer pick of myself, Trey Nixon, 4 for 81. He did play against the backups late in the preseason game, but obviously as a Patriot fan, I'm reading a lot of offseason reports. And when Bill Belichick is talking about a player's work ethic, I think it's worth noting because he really doesn't say much in general. And he has nothing but great things to say about Trey Nixon. And the last time that reports like this were coming from Patriot camps about a player, first it was Julian Edelman, and we saw what career he had. This was back in the mid-2000s, and then as a more recent, Jacoby Meyer was getting the same type of talks about him. So guys that, they're not going to be stars in your lineup, but they could be solid flex plays, wide receiver 3s, options like that. So somebody to stash deep. I think he's eligible for your taxi squad still for another year. This is his second year. So if you got an open spot on your taxi squad, throw him on there because I think he's got some decent upside to be a potential guy in your lineup. I didn't mention Taekwon Thornton because again, I mentioned him quite a bit, Cody. I know he had the touchdown, and I think Thornton and Pierce are on the same had the same situation where I think the game film of them just running their routes and stuff told a better story than their stat line. I watched both Alec Pierce and Taekwon Thornton's highlights of them not even getting the ball, and they were wide open. So, it's hard to, I didn't want to sound like a homer. I'm well, he was getting open. He just didn't get the ball thrown to him kind of situation. So I'll wait for a performance for Taekwon Thornton to speak for itself. His touchdown was nice. He gets a lot of separation. His route running has improved tremendously, which was a concern of mine personally, but apparently in camp, he's been working a lot with Troy Brown. So, I think a lot of people invested a 3rd-round pick in him. So, and I think they're going to get great return on that as well.
Bryce. Before we end and go to questions and stuff, I need.
We have a couple.
I need to do this. I need to double down on Zay Jones. I need to do this. I'm dead serious. I need to do this. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. He is my favorite bottom of the trash heap player right now. He was on the field. Every snap Trevor Lawrence was on the field. They just brought him in. They gave him a 3-year, $24 million contract. He had a pretty nice season with the Raiders last season. I don't think they brought him in just to kind of sit on the sidelines and not do anything. I really do think he's going to be involved. Obviously, he's not going to have a, MVP type season. He's not going to make the Pro Bowl. But I tell you what, he's going to be on the field. He's going to have potential to make plays every single week. He's healthy and on the field. And I do think that he's going to be one of those guys that can get you 10 points when you need it. And you can basically get him for free. He's on waiver wires. You can trade 5th-round picks for him. I just think of all the guys in the league at their ADP and value, Zay Jones, especially in best ball, Zay Jones is my favorite end of the draft guy on all of my. I'm going to try to get him on all my rosters if I have the roster space because there's no downside with what he costs, and I think he's going to be on the field in a productive spot any week. He can get you points. So I needed to do that. I'm going to double down on my Zay Jones call, and I was very optimistic with what I saw. And he was on the field with Trevor Lawrence. He had a couple nice grabs in week 1. I just think that he's being completely overlooked right now by everyone not named Leone.
All right. Zay Jones, he definitely does not. He definitely doesn't have any risk at his cost.
He costs nothing.
That's true. All right.
And yes, we only have a couple, away from open window.
We only have a couple questions. We did forget to mention Isaiah Likely. He did perform really well for Baltimore. It's just unless they start running these 2 tight end sets,
they will. I think they will. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll be extremely productive in that role, but
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I mean, yeah, he's doing well. It's good to see.
Guy I'm sticking on my taxi squad and seeing like we've seen guys go to Baltimore and then leave and have really productive careers.
Yeah.
Darren Waller. Obviously that was because some substance abuse problems and addiction issues, but I'm just saying it seems like Baltimore drafts good tight ends, whether they play for them or end up leaving and moving on.
And Nick Boyle's looking pretty good too, I heard. So yeah, I mean,
sure. All right, this was kind of going off of our stuff earlier. Who throws the ball more, Colts or Steelers?
I don't know. I could see it going both ways. I guess
rather easily.
I guess you would say Steelers because they're not going to be running the ball with Jonathan Taylor as much. So
I mean, they got
Harris is good, but he's not as good as Jonathan Taylor.
I just see the Colts in a situation to where they can control the clock more than I see the Steelers in that situation. That's how thin that margin is for me. Like,
I think it's close.
The way they run their
question.
Yeah. I think the way those teams run their offenses are very similar. But you got Matt Ryan in there now, and I don't think Matt Ryan's suited to drop back 35 plus times a game. Where really Trubisky and Pickens are early enough in their career where they could, Pickett. So we'll see. I think they lean on the run game. I think both teams lean on the run game. The Steelers or the Colts will be winning more often, so they'll lean on it the whole game rather than the Steelers.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's it. Hassan Haskins or Chestnut? I want Hassan.
Well, that's your boy.
Haskins.
Yeah, that's your boy, Haskins.
I want Hassan Haskins. I'll take the handcuff to Derrick Henry. Volume. He's got a lot of miles on his tires. I think injury is not necessarily likely, but it's it's not, I think it's less than 50%, right? But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility where that team leans on the run game, whether Derrick Henry was on the field or not. And we saw it last year with Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard when they stepped in. So that's why I like Hassan Haskins.
Haskins went to Michigan, right?
He did.
Oh.
Where did Taekwon Thornton go? Where did Taekwon Thornton go to college?
He obviously went to Miami. The U.
They have a U in it. It's a BU, Baylor University.
I just got a little mixed up there.
Yeah, Baylor.
Okay.
That's sad. Do you know where I don't know where do you know where Chase Claypool went to college?
No. Isn't he Canadian?
I'll give you a hint.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't he Canadian?
I don't know. Where did Chestnut go to school? That's a good question. I'm not sure about him. I really don't know a lot of these. Like I learn a lot of the reason I learned where a lot of these pro players went to college is from watching the pro games, and then they'll flash back to their college, and I'll just remember that. Like I'll remember it from a clip or something like that. That's how I remember a lot of these guys. Oh, Chestnut's the Canadian. There you go. Is that who you're talking about?
No, Claypool.
Is Claypool Canadian?
Yeah, he is.
He's saying yes, he's Canadian, and then Sacred Heart for Chestnut. I got you.
Correct. Sacred Heart, which I've never even heard of that before. Have you ever heard of that school before?
No. I know Antonio Brown went to my mom went to this online school. It was such a weird school, like Eastern.
Your mom went
Michigan.
to the same school as Antonio Brown?
She got a degree online from that school. Yeah. It's like Eastern something.
Wait, did AB get a degree?
Oh, I doubt it.
I don't know. You might have some spare time now to do that.
Hey,
Hey, but before we go, are you keeping your Antonio Brown shares? And I want to ask the people in the chat too. Are you keeping your Antonio Brown shares? I have him on a number of rosters, and it's like, I don't want to cut the guy.
I cut him.
You cut him.
I cut him recently. Yep. I don't think he sees the field again. I think he is I'm not going to get into it again, but I don't think he is in the right mental state to be on the football field again. I don't think any team needs that headache.
You're in no position. No, I'm kidding.
I just think he is just not mentally.
Inside joke, people.
Yeah.
Wow. See, look, Jaws dropped him too. Okay, yeah. So maybe I don't know.
It's hard. You're valuing his name at this point. He's 34. Leone's 34. I can't believe you have someone that old on your roster. I can't believe it. No. I think the odds of him storming off the field again within the first 3 weeks are more probable than him having a 20-plus point week again. So,
man. All right. I might have to do that. We'll see. All right, I'll keep you posted on that.
He talked crap about the whole organization after he left. Like, why would any organization subject themselves to that possibility of someone like him getting upset again? You know what I mean? So, yeah, doesn't make sense.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Next week, believe it or not, we'll be talking about week 2 of preseason. I think it'll be a lot more fun. It'll be a lot more fun because I think we're going to see a lot more starters. I think every team will at least have their number one quarterback play a drive or more. I think that is in the cards and against top defenses. So we will see you guys next week, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
See ya.